Welcome to the Focus, Freedom, and Flow podcast. I'm your co host, Jackson Ferguson, and I'm joined by my co host, pro basketball player Axel Louison. Today, we're honored to welcome Brooklyn native Coach D. Williams, founder of Get Fit Fly Right, and known as the Mental Hygienist. She's been a featured guest speaker at NBA and junior NBA coaches conferences, focusing on self care for coaches and youth mental well being. She was a 2024 Junior Knicks Coach of the Year award finalist. Through Get Fit Flight Right, an international partnership with organizations such as Peace Players, Lurius, Sports for Good, and Beyond Sports, her TAP method has supported over 150 youth leaders and impacted more than 7,000 young people in 2025. We're so excited to dive into her journey, her vision, and her powerful work, and especially in a way to welcome her back to Switzerland, a country that she is familiar with. So, Coach D, thank you so much for being here with us today. We're truly grateful.
Same. Thank you for having me. Really looking forward to this talk.
So, from what I've known of you, it seems like your work is deeply connected to your personal journey, which to me is one of the keys to do what you do. So maybe can you share a little bit about your story and what led you to where you're now?
Sure. So first off, definitely want to just reiterate, I'm super excited to be here. I definitely have a love spot in my heart for Switzerland. Shout out to Shifty Hoops. So really, again, excited to just keep the connections flowing and growing. And so with that being said, Get Fit Fly Right, firstly was a basketball team. I wanted to have a basketball team. And so at 19, very ambitious, I created a basketball team. And for the next, I want to say 7 or 8 years, I did AAU, which in the States is the athletic AA, the Amateur Athletic Union. So that's where young people go and they go into different tournaments. You have different levels. So you have the community level, then you have the more established, I would say, circuit. And then you have more the elite level, which are called invitationals, right? So the invitational tournaments that you get to play in based on how you've played in other tournaments. So I focus primarily at the community level because one, I wanted to really impact youth who were often overlooked. I saw a lot of them and myself in just being overlooked. And I wanted to use basketball not as a meal ticket or an avenue to get out the hood, but more a a almost a vessel for learning life skills, for learning responsibility, for learning love, right? Learning that you could love and that you were worthy of it. So for me, get fit, fly right. It was like in the name. Like I want to help these kids get fit so they can fly right. Sort of like a mother bird. She cares for her eggs, and when they begin to hatch, she feeds them. As birds get older, there is at some point where they literally have to leave the nest and learn how to fly. And then once they do that, they leave, right? And so when I thought of that, I thought about the survival of the fittest, and that's where the I would say initial passion of Get Fit Fly Right started. And so moving forward, 2014, I now have amassed about 60 boys in my program. I have 3 teams. And not only was I unsatisfied, I was overworked and burnt out. At that time, I was working as a high school dean. So that meant I got up at 4 in the morning. I was at school by 7. I left school at 4 because I was an assistant dean. I did detention. So you can imagine how crappy I was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon after having already been up since 4 a.m. But then at 7 p.m., I had basketball practice. So from 7 to 10, I was in the gym and then doing it all over again. And I was walking, one day I was walking, regular route. I was in Harlem, New York, and I was heading to the train station and I collapsed in the middle of the street. I was having a anxiety and panic attack. I wasn't at the time. I wasn't aware of any of that. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm dying! Help me!" And the tears are spewing. I can't breathe. Every sound and light was triggering. It was very blurry for me. and just debilitating in every way, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And I'm like, yo, I'm good. Get up. And the more I tried to like tense up and will myself, it just further exacerbated what I was feeling. And so I do not know, how long it was, but I do know after some time of me, experiencing the heart palpitations, the loss of breath, and the tears, I heard my mother say, Neek, just breathe. So my full name is Dominique, and my mother used to call me Neek as a child. And she used to often say, just breathe. And that was her way of getting me to stop and think and then progress to whatever it was that I was doing. And so in 2014, this had been 5 years since she had passed away. My mother passed in 2009. And so in that moment, hearing her voice was really the only thing that brought me any type of relief, any type of peace. And as I began to do it, I started to not only feel better, I was able to like think clearly. The noise weren't as intrusive. The lights weren't as glaring. And it's funny because I looked around and I just got up and went on the train and went home like nothing happened. But then after that, I said to myself, I can't do that again. Like I can't experience that again. And I just wanted to figure it out. And her words, just breathe, it really stuck with me. And so I started studying different breathing techniques. I studied martial arts, mixed martial arts, how boxers breathe, how athletes breathe, how swimmers breathe. I just became obsessed with air. And in my mind at the time, it was a way to help me process what I had went through. And I didn't understand it. And I came across the mental health first aid program in 2015. And so I thought, hey, I'm doing this for my boys. They need it. I need to learn this for them. So I'm sitting in the youth mental health first aid class, and the entire time I'm fighting tears. I'm like, oh my God, I need therapy. Is something wrong with me? Everything that they were presenting, I was like, ugh, I need this for me. And so that's really how the transition began, where I started taking a closer look and a deeper dive at the power of sport, but also the pressure of sport, the pressure of performance, and what that's doing not just to our youth, but to me. And I started breathing more. And so I came up with this breathing technique for myself, and I shared it with my athletes. And then 5 years later, or 6 years later now, it became a fully realized method and curriculum, and now a business where I can support others find their peace, clean their mind, build that competence and confidence to navigate any emotional challenge. That way, they're able to perform optimally.
Thank you so much. It resonates deeply. We'll get into the method. We'll talk about all that, but I just want to share how much this resonate because as a mindfulness instructor and coach for youth and athletes, I often share it's still today, I'm 43, in the toughest moments, and it still happens, of course, even though I've been meditating for 15 years. If I'm despaired, angry, or just really, really, really down, like really in the toughest moments I can live, it's the exact same thing. Like what's left is my breathing. In the toughest moments, what did I do? I come back to my breath. And I tell myself, it's one breath after the other. And the storm will pass and things will change. So yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much.
And what do young people need most today, in your opinion, Coach D?
I think they need their own voices. I think there's too many people telling them what they need. And when we think about the way technology plays a part in that, right? When I was growing up, I went outside. And, if I was on this block, there was this culture and this opinion. But if I went down the block, there was something different. And then being able to travel and go hang out. I'm from New York City. So in the 90s and the early 2000s, we had block parties. And so I may go to a block party in Brooklyn and then a block party in Harlem or a block party in the Bronx. And there are all these different cultures, different opinions, different people, different expressions of genius, right? And it allows you in all of that difference to kind of like filter, okay, I like that, I don't really like that. Ooh, that speaks to me. right? But kids nowadays, I would say in the last 15 years, they have been inundated with technology, with other people's opinions, other people's personas, personalities, influencing, right? And so I think the biggest thing our youth need is just their own voice and trust in their own voice.
And maybe so, maybe we can dive right into it since you're talking about that. So you're called the mental hygienist, and I also saw that you have a tap method. So maybe do you want to share a little bit more of what you teach to the kids and athletes and what is behind that mission and what you're doing?
Sure. So I'll start with the first part, the mental hygienist. So I call myself the mental hygienist, and when I speak, I am like, call me the mental hygienist. And the reason is because here in the States, and I don't know if this is something you guys experience overseas, there is a big, how can I say this? There's a big reliance on science in a way that kind of, I want to say, really puts a strain on the trust in holistic and Eastern practice, right? And so what happens here in the States is a lot of theory. People sound amazingly intelligent, let me tell you. But then you go into their spaces and you see the youth in the community and others interact, and you're like, okay, we're on autopilot. People are running a script, right? And so the mental hygienist, anytime I say it, people are like, what? Huh?
Mhm.
But in that one moment, yes, that is the moment that I thrive in. You know, as a speaker, I think it is insanely easy to command a room. I think it is extremely difficult to change a heart or a mind.
Mhm.
But that's the goal, right? When you go into a room to speak, right? The goal isn't to be heard, it's to change minds, to change hearts. At least that's my goal. And so that's how the mental hygienist came when I started the athlete project. I actually started it in school. I went to Fordham University. I had a Buddhist meditation class that I was super interested in. And I had my professor always say to me, and I will never forget this quote. He says, Dominique, you cannot skip to the end. I'm smart, right? This is easy. Let me just get this done and get this A. I got things to do. And he would often, say to me, you can't skip to the end. And it was my cue to go back, right? Go back. What he understood of, young Dominique at that time, or younger Dominique at that time, was I was a bottom liner. Let's just bottom line it. But in that bottom line, very much like Bruce Lee when he talks about looking up at the sun and missing all the heavenly glory, right? So it's not to say the sun isn't important or the bottom line isn't necessary, but there is so much in between, right? And so I was like, how do I get people to understand and be invested in the in between, right? And so one of my quotes that I often open up any type of like speaking engagement that I have around mental hygiene is inhale, exhale, stop. The moment in between
Mhm.
is uncertain, but that is where peace is found. And so for many people, to be able to stop is one, a vulnerability because our nervous system is fighting against that, right?
Mhm.
Then to be cognizant of when we exhale, what happened previously, right? That takes practice, concentration. It takes intention, but it's a skill. It's a skill to breathe, exhale, and then stop and review what just happened, right? And I was like, damn, that to say it like that, people are like, oh yeah, I do that all the time. No, you
Mhm.
don't. So
Mhm.
it's like, okay, how do I make this so simple
Mhm.
that it changes people's minds and heart? And I started to compare the athlete project to dental hygiene. And I would go into a room with
Yep.
kids. And with most kids, I'm like, damn, this is kind of, layered. How am I going to introduce this to them? And one day I said, who brushed their teeth this morning? I said, okay, cool. I said, who gargled? They were like, me, I gargled, I gargled. I use Listerine. I said, okay. Who flossed? A lot of hands went down. I said, no judgment, no judgment. Then I said, who scraped their tongue? And they was like, nah, I don't be doing that. It hurt. Other people's like, yeah, I scrape my tongue in. So now we're happy, we're laughing. People are like, oh, your breath stink. No, my breath is fresh. And we're having this conversation about hygiene in such a way that people are not feeling judged. They are proud to talk about how clean their mouth is. Right? So I said, I got to do something with this. I got to do something with this. And that's when the curriculum was realized, because I was like, wow, this is changing people's minds. To go in and say, did you brush your teeth? Yes. Did you do this? Did you do that? Yes, yes, yes. Did you do that for your brain? And people are like, And the more I continue to do these talks in different spaces, be it with adults or with kids or with both, you started hearing some people say, yes, I did. Yes, I did. Well, what did you do? Oh, I prayed. Oh, I journaled. I would say I did. Well, what did you do today, coach? I breathed. I 5-3-3. Right? And so when we look at hygiene, right, and we take it as simple down to dental hygiene, in the 1600s and the 1700s, no one brushed their teeth. But around the 1800s, people started dying of different diseases of the mouth, different bacteria, right? Things that they didn't think affected them in any way. It started to shorten life expectancy. It started to cause depression, hallucination, bacteria of the mouth and the gut, which, as you know, if you don't, once you have bacteria in the gut, it begins to affect the brain and all other organs. And I was like, isn't that the same for mental health? Isn't that the same for our minds? Depression, right? Being almost very similar in symptoms to cancer. Anxiety being very similar in symptoms to a heart attack. And I said, well, I'm not going to go and explain this. I'm just going to ask you, did you brush your teeth and did you do that for your brain? And people are like, wow, okay, this makes sense. And so from that, we came up with our core values. We call them pillars, which is awareness, development, and normalization. Some people use Colgate. Some people use Hello toothpaste. Some people use Neem. Some people use baking soda, right? But everyone cleans their teeth because it's normal. It's like, I don't need to know that this can hurt my liver, but I know my breath stinks and I don't want that. And so now we equate that to the mind, right? With our emotions stinking, our energies being stale, our thoughts, right, being dirty, clouding our mind. And when kids started to get it, I was in a second grade class and they were like, yeah, because when you're angry, your mind is dirty. I'm like, okay, well, they get it. They get it. And that's how the Athlete Project was born, from initially a project in Buddhist meditation class to me having my own experience with anxiety and panic, to now learning and then seeing, okay, how do I change people's minds? How do I create something that's fun, that makes people laugh? That how do I get people to be invested in their own well-being in ways that they can't see? You can't see mental health, but you feel it, you hear it. So it makes it so much easier to dismiss. But if we make it like our teeth, like you said, right? You have bad days, even being an avid meditator for 15 years, right? Meditation doesn't cure problems,
Yep.
right? Restoration isn't void of awareness, it's the result of, right? And so I said, I got to make this simple. I got to make this easy. And that's how the Athlete Project was born. We just want to tap into our brains, tap into our minds, clean our brains, clean our minds. And from there we were able to build out courses and build out other materials to kind of make cleaning your mind fun. Like I remember being 5 and going to the dentist and getting a little coloring book and a lollipop because I went to the dentist. So I'm going to give people lollipops and coloring books for cleaning their mind.
That's beautiful.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to talk about, so much resonate. Here in Switzerland, I think there's also a lot of theory, so I just love the path and what you're doing and how you're trying to bring that. There's one thing that you shared that maybe we can, I don't want to make a bad joke, but we could stop on that, is the act of stopping, because I think that I see it even for me. I've had a smartphone now for 2 or 3 years. It's been pretty recent, and I see the impact on my mind. I mean, and I'm a meditator for 15 years. I mean, it's the core of my life. I love it, and still I see how we're rushing, how we're losing focus. Can you maybe talk a little bit more of the power of stopping? You said after the exhale, you stop because that's the foundation, I think, of mindfulness meditation. And when you stop, mindfulness is not just to feel good and be present. There's so much power to what happens when you stop. So I don't know if you want to share a little bit more on that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I love, that you said mindfulness is, about being present and being aware. And what's interesting is the way that I talk about mindfulness here is completely different.
Mm,
Because what I've learned is that, right, people will take an idea and run with it in the wrong direction. And when it comes to mindfulness, right, mindfulness is being able to use the full capacity of your mind. But in order to do that, one must also empty the mind. That's a conundrum for most people.
mm,
To understand that is a conundrum. Wait, I meditated and I'm still pissed off? What's going on? Well, the meditation wasn't to relax you or to make you feel better. It was actually to get you aware of what you're actually feeling. So now you're present with it, right? The gift wasn't relief, the gift was release. But in order to release, you have to recognize. And once you recognize, you have to be able to respond, right? And so it's the recognizing and respond. That part is really hard. And so
mm,
within the Athlete Project, we have an activity called RIR, which is respond, identify, recognize, identify, respond. And so we teach people how to stop. You have to teach people how to stop, right? For example, just yesterday, I got some news that pissed me clean off. Clean off. I was pissed off. And I was like, okay. And in that moment, I was like, what do I need? So I called my sister, telling my sister about it. She was like, you know what? I hear you, but don't go into it with the mindset of, this is something that you can easily get over. Don't go into it with the mindset that you're in a hopeless position, X, Y, and Z. And in that moment, I saw myself. And so we get off the phone, and I had to stop and say, right now, I want to be mad. I want to blame this and that and that. But in the moment, I'm still at work. I'm still working with children. And I know that my energy is going to affect them. So then my supervisor comes in and she's like, oh, the group is ready for you. I was like, oh, I told them I'll be there at 4:15. She was like, oh, they're ready now. This was at like 4:12. I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to be on my way. Literally, I could have rushed to the room, right? My supervisor just came in, told me I need to be there now. But I said, no, I'm going to take 30 seconds because I want to make sure that my mind is clean. And I'm not going in there with what's on my mind. Now, did that change my situation? No. But it put me in a position to be present with what I was feeling, what I needed, and how I could respond in that moment. And in that moment, it was, I actually can't do anything about it right now. Right? That's what that awareness brought me. It's like you could be mad and you could blame the world, but actually nothing's going to change. So you want to be mad and nothing changes, or you want to release it, put yourself in a space where you can be for these kids and then figure out what you're going to do when you leave. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go pick the other one because you're right. And I had an amazing time with the kids. Like, we played musical chairs, you know what I'm saying? We played a game. And interestingly enough, the kids were acting up. It took me 15 minutes to get them to settle down.
mm,
And I was like, that's how powerful we are. That my energy, and I'm not saying, kids are kids. 9-year-olds are going to be bippity boppity boo. They're not going to sit down. But because I was already dealing with something, I walked into that space with that on me. Right? And I think when I'm able to explain it in that way, mindfulness is the act of clearing the mind to get to be present, to get to be grounded, not feel grounded, not feel, and that's really the difference, right? When people hear presence and grounding, they think they're going to feel good,
mm,
right? But being present and being aware doesn't always feel good, right? So if I say that, people are like, I'm not doing that mindfulness, right? But if I give them a story about how my inability to be aware of myself or being aware of myself and still affecting others, now they can say, oh, y'all remember that time I came in the house and I da 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 da. Now people can start to be aware of their energy and how it impacts their surroundings. So I like to sum that up, I like to showcase mindfulness and exhibit it in ways where we're being it, because I could say all these things and it sounds amazing. And you go into these spaces and people go into these mental health mindfulness spaces and they feel great, and they
Mm-hmm.
leave and they don't do the work. They leave and they don't understand the cost and the investment that it takes to actually be mindful.
So, what transformation have you witnessed through this work?
Aside from my own,
Of course.
um, definitely with youth, and the adults. I think that the kids that I most impact, in all honesty, are the big kids, are the adults,
Mm-hmm.
not the kids, right? Attitude is you're an athlete, right? Attitude is a reflection of leadership, right? And so I believe what we're seeing in our youth today is nothing more than what we have shown them or have not shown them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I really wholeheartedly believe that the biggest impact of Get Fit Fly Right to date is how we've been able to, one, free people of judgment, two, give them tangible strategies to implement wellness on a daily basis, and then three, see themselves. We provide services and products and materials and resources, tools, whichever word you want to use, to get people to see themselves, right? And that's why it's called the Athlete Project, not because it's designated for athletes, but in the spirit of Buddhist practice and Buddhism, right? Everyone has a project in this life that they get to fulfill, right? Their journey. But when you think about an athlete, this is someone who performs on an elite level, physically and mentally, coordinating together to achieve a goal. And so that's to me the difference between human beings and any other creature on the planet. The better we are at this coordination for whatever endeavor we choose, right? We're now able to see and understand our own project, right? For some, it may be graduating college. For an athlete, it may be getting to the next level. For a mom, it may be getting a home or a house for her children, right? For a 15-year-old, it may be getting a girl or a guy that they like, right? We all perform at something all the time in coordination with our minds and our bodies. How do we bring those together? And so the biggest impact of Get Fit Fly Right is getting people on that path of, one, seeing themselves, as I said, and really being in a position to practice wellness daily. And how we see that in communities on some real concrete levels is more help seeking. Children are saying, hey, I need to go breathe. I need a minute. Or, hey, I didn't eat today. Or, hey, I'm tired, right? Um, we see in adults exhibiting more vulnerability, the ability to say, I was wrong. It is so hard, I've noticed, doing this work for coaches, adults, teachers, just people, to say I was wrong in front of children, or to say I'm sad in front of children.
Yep.
And it's this idea that they have to be this thing. So it's not only our athletes dealing with identity crises, right? It's also a lot of adults, a lot of people in positions of power, a lot of our leaders, right? Most people do the things that they do out of fear. And so if we're able to get you to see that, 9 times out of 10, you're going to rethink that strategy. And so that, I would say, to date has been our biggest impact.
Wow. Thank you. Maybe I want to piggyback on what you just said because I think that's so important also. I'm also a math and physics teacher, so I part-time teach the young people between 12 and 16 years old.
Oh, bless your heart.
Thank you. And Maybe you can speak more on that, on leadership and the link with vulner. Can you say that in English?
I got you.
Vulnerability. All
Vulnerability.
right.
How do you say it in
Yeah, thank you.
French? How do you say
Vulnérable.
vulnerability in French?
Vulnérable.
Say that
Vulnérable.
one more time. Vil,
Vulnérable.
Villevable.
Kind of.
Something like that. Oh, but of my experience, what you just said, being able as an adult to share to kids how you feel, and especially being sad or being angry, is such a game changer. I mean, I've gone from kids in the classroom just like looking through the window and whatever, it's just the adult. He knows everything. He's strong. He's courageous. And then you start sharing like how you really feel. And really, I've literally seen kids, they're like, huh. They start looking at you. Wow,
Mhm.
he's speaking truthfully. And I think that is so needed. Like I think a lot of us in our generation suffered from having all these adults. I mean, it also, I mean, the 20th century was a particular century with war and just here in, yeah, Europe, America too. And so you had to be tough and maybe not show emotions. But I think nowadays it could, just that could bring so much amazing change if like leaders, adult parents, coaches would dare to do it. So I don't know. I just wanted to bounce on that. I don't know if you can share more of the power of leadership and showing emotion and vulnerability.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think to your point, again, in theory, and I would say that this work started with my generation. So I'm 39, and we were showing emotion, but it was often seen as anger or rebellion. Like
Mm,
I come from the
hmm.
generation who grew up with
Yeah.
Tupac and Biggie, and I'm serious, and
Yep. Yep.
NWA, and we
Hmm.
had all these different types of music and art. Dance was becoming really popular, not only in secular culture but also in pop culture, fashion. So there was so many things that I know I experienced in my teenage years around expression. When I was in high school, Ellen DeGeneres came out. Around that time, the U.S. made gay marriage legal. So there were a lot of, I would say, voices, right? I think what we're experiencing now is those voices have now gone from we ready to fight to
Hmm.
I don't want to fight.
Hmm.
And that's hard for people who've been fighting,
Hmm.
right? But if we didn't fight, they wouldn't have the space to be vulnerable now.
Hmm.
And so, to your point, I think it's a balancing act for a lot of adults because what's really going on is not knowing how to navigate cultivating a space that you didn't have, right? I have to cultivate a safe space for this young person in ways that I never received.
Yeah.
And for different people, that can go a
Yeah.
myriad of ways, right? I could feel resentful. I could feel dismissive. I could feel like it's unfair, right? Like, well, I had to go through this, so you go through this. Or now I see you as weak because what I perceive as strength was about resistance, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's layered. What we've been able to do at the Athlete Project or TAP, we usually say TAP, um, is in 2025 we had a cohort. We did our first TAP coach cohort where we trained 4 college students who coach youth sports, and we not only trained them, they took our TAP Talks course online, and then they were able to facilitate these trainings to other coaches throughout New York City. Now these coaches are between 19 and 22. They had coaches in the room that they were teaching as old as 65. And what we saw, it was so powerful. Oh, it was so powerful, the exchange of wisdom, the exchange of a 65-year-old saying, I don't know how to compete with a cell phone. And then the 21-year-old saying, I don't either. I don't know how to not live with it. And now they having that dialogue. Well, the 65-year-olds, well, when you're coaching kids that are 8, how do you navigate that? And them having conversation. And then the younger coaches saying to the older coaches, well, how do you get them to listen to you? How do you command a space, right? So where these younger coaches are teaching these older coaches about vulnerability, about sharing feelings, giving them a hug or a pat on the back, older coaches are teaching about discipline, authority, Leadership. And so for me, I think leadership is about what I like to call even exchanges, right? I learn from my players just as much as they learn from me, right? I need to, for example, a good coach will say, that was a good loss, because they understand that losing is sometimes, most times, how you learn. And so if I lose face right now as a coach and be vulnerable, I might learn something about my athletes that can really support them. So the bulk of our work in 2025 was about training coaches and youth leaders, because what we've learned is that in theory, everyone wants to feel good. In theory, everyone wants to be great. Everyone wants to be a leader, right? But what does that look like in practice? And we focused on the practice part. So one, it's getting youth voices in positions of, of power and leadership and facilitating. It's putting our elders in a position to learn, right? But then most importantly, and this for me has been the key piece with the Athlete Project or TAP, is making sure that people feel safe and seen. Confidence and competence don't happen without safety and trust, right? And so in our course, we often teach our older coaches or more veteran coaches about connection before correction. You don't need to understand every emotion that they're going through. You don't know what it's like to be 15 in 2025 with a cell phone. You don't, right? But you do know what it's like to be sad, to be overwhelmed, to be at a loss, to grieve, to be hungry, to be cold, to be sleepy. Everybody's different. I'm not hangry. I could be hungry and you'd never know. But I'm cold. I'm a different person. Right? Tell that to your athletes. Talk about that. Talk about being hangry. Talk about being sleepy and how you need your sleep. Right? It gives them the space to want to do the same. It gives them the space to seek help. It gives them the space to connect with you so they trust when you correct them.
Thanks. Maybe do you have a particular story that touched you or moved you on something you've witnessed, a transformation or something, and it could be a teenager, it could be a coach, it could be whatever, but a particular story that moved you.
Ooh, that's kind of hard to say because I think, this has been purely my own philosophy,
Okay.
but I like to see myself as a stop in young people's lives. Only a stop,
Mhm.
right? So you imagine you get on the train or the tram in Switzerland and you get on one stop and then you ride the train for however long you need to get to this destination. But when you get off at that stop, you're going somewhere. And so I often see young people as that. Like I'm just a stop for them. And so oftentimes I don't see the totality of, them at 14 and Coach D making them breathe to them being 24. But in the youth that I have seen, one youth in particular, I won't say her name, but I met her when she was 13. She was going to the eighth grade. She's now 21. She's about to turn 21 or 22 in the next couple of days. And when I first met her, she was very hostile, very closed off, very hypervigilant, very aggressive, if you will, and rightfully so. She navigated incarceration, not her herself, but a close family member. I believe it was her father. Her and her mother didn't have the most cohesive relationship, right? And for you guys are guys, I'm a girl, but as a firstborn daughter, when you are a teenager, you and your mother, like it's inevitable. You ask any woman if they had that, some have different experiences where they're really close, and then some when that girl is a teenager, we ready to fight. And so she had that type of relationship with her mom. And, at this time at 13, you're learning your body, you're learning, you start to stand up different, you start to talk different, you start wanting different things with your hair and your clothes, you start to socialize more. And so as she was going through that, she was introduced to me in 533. And there were times where she and I would like butt heads. And it was because I was like, you're angry for what? I didn't do nothing to you. And we would have that discourse. And so over the years with that group, and this is actually a Peace Players group here in Brooklyn, I did mindfulness, or we call them hygiene workshops. We did athletic yoga, which is tap yoga. And then we also did actual basketball. And it was very important for me that all three were in the same space. So often you'll see a basketball thing or a sport thing, and then the mental health stuff is over there, or it's segmented. And I felt like that was a problem. So what I did with Peace Players between 2018 and 2022 was integrate wellness into our practice, into our warm ups, into our huddles. And over time, she started to come to me. Last person on earth I thought she would come to, but she started opening up to me and telling me certain things. And so everyone that knows Coach D knows I'm infamous for saying many blessings, blessings, blessings. She says that now to me every time we speak. Many blessings, Coach. Yo, Coach, I've been dealing with X, Y, and Z. Or yo, Coach, I've been in this relationship and it didn't. Yo, Coach, this I need to go to therapy. Like she's said those things to me, right? And so I would say in terms of transformation, what I saw was a young lady who was guarded because of trauma, right? Because of dealing with certain systematic oppressions here in the States. And through that, all she was scared. She felt unprotected. So she decided to protect herself from everything. To now, she's still aggressive. She's still ready to fight. She is who she is, right? But she's no longer hyper vigilant. She's able to see people for who they are. And she's able to be like, nah, you right, my bad. My bad, coach. That was mad aggressive. I'm out of character. That's not me, coach. Right? Like she's able to see herself. And in these moments of like where her default is to fight, she's like, nah, let me bring it back, coach. My bad. Many blessings. Right? Like she's able to have that type of dialogue where when she was 13, 14, 15, that was not the case. So I would say for me that is transformation over time. And I think to your point with mindfulness, at least here in the States, people think wellness is like a pill. I got a headache, I pop a pill, my headache's gone. But the thing is that what caused the headache is not gone. The pill is just blocking the symptoms. So when it comes to mindfulness, people are expecting some type of euphoric relief, but that's not what it is. And so transformation doesn't happen instantly. It happens over a period of time.
Yeah, that's beautiful because you helped her to witness, like to transform at only 21, 22 years old, which is young. And it could have happened when she would be like 60, but because of you, thanks to you, you helped her to transform herself at 21. So that's a big blessing.
Thank you. Same. Yeah, she helped me too because I was her. Right? I didn't do it with the kids, but I was doing it out in the street. I'm still learning how not to be, you know? And that's where that even exchange comes in. That's what makes it authentic. That's what makes it real, right? When you're able to support someone and in that support, it also supports you, right? Some things can be purchased with money, right? But not everything. Some of the most important things can only be purchased with trust. And in order for me to gain her to listen, her to stop trying to fight me, I tell her to get on the baseline and she cursing me out. Like I had to earn her trust. But in order to do that, I also had to learn from her. And I had to learn about myself in that process. So the transformation happened both ways.
So yeah, Coach D, why do you think that these skills are still overlooked by many nowadays?
For two reasons. I think these type of skills are overlooked. One, because it's very difficult to do a thing that you've never had to do before, right? Like I don't need mindfulness to survive. I don't need mindfulness to thrive. I don't need mindfulness to function. And so when it's hard to see need and feel urgency, the likelihood of someone doing it is different, right? Like Jackson earlier talked about, I love meditating. Meditating was something that really helped me, right? So he's an avid meditator because meditation worked. But he had to try it first, right? But because there's so many narratives, so many different narratives around wellness, around meditation, around mindfulness, around mental health. It's a lot easier to just stay away from all of it because I can still function. I can still go to work. I can still be who I am, right? The second reason is that vulnerability piece we talked about earlier. I don't want to look at myself and say, you know, hey, I might want to look at that because this actually isn't a sign of strength or leadership. It's a sign of trauma that's reflecting in my teaching style. Or what we have within the athlete project, it's called FBS, F the BS, but fear based strategies, right? I've literally asked coaches, made them uncomfortable. How many of your strategies are fear based?
Mm.
What do you mean by that, coach? You know exactly what I mean. How many strategies do you employ that are based in your fear? When it comes to the cell phone, what are you afraid of? Why are you afraid of a phone? No, these kids don't understand. Well, what don't they understand? Because you sound really upset about something that's in their world. Well, these kids are sensitive and they this and they that. Or you don't have the language to connect with them. You understand what I'm saying? So it's hard to look at something and be the reason that you're looking at it. Right?
Mm.
My mother used to say to me when I was a child, Neek, the monsters that you're fighting are the ones that you created. And so I think mindfulness is hard because a lot of our leaders, a lot of our coaches, even some of our athletes, they'll see that the monster that they're fighting is them, or it's a monster that they created in their mind, right? And so that's hard. I don't have to do that to pay my bills. Why do I want to go do that? How is that gonna make me better? It's gonna make me feel a way about myself in ways that I don't want to feel. Right? Most people don't know how to love themselves when they don't like themselves.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I really enjoy and I like to help the youth, the kids, because I think that we have as coaches more impact for the kids than for someone who already, an adult who has more experience. I feel like when we teach the kids some of this stuff, we have more impact because they can, like, it's like we bring them the foundation of the mental game. Whereas, like, when for example, as me, when I started to meditate when I was probably 26. I was already like playing basketball. I reached, let's say, the second division of France. I was happy, but and I was like, okay, now I will try to meditate. It was hard to implement these new tools because you know I had to face myself. I had to, it's always tougher to implement something new when you're older and when you have more experience. So that's the reason why I like to teach the kids, because I really feel that I have a big impact on them. So so I get your point. But I have a question, because when we meditate, you said that it's we are vulnerable, and also, like, most of the leaders, they don't want to go in that place. But is it maybe because if we meditate, we let's say, if we face ourselves and we see that we are the problem, but we still, reach some goals. Maybe it's difficult for us to change our motivation, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. So let's
Yeah,
say,
no, that makes perfect sense.
for example, me, I was always an angry player. Like, when I was on the court, I was the angry guy. I had a story on my mind just to push myself during practices, during game. I was like, I have a Axel outside of the game, Axel on the game. I created this character. And when I was so after my injury, after my Achilles, one night I sat down on my couch and I was like, okay, I cannot keep going like this, because I know it's not the right way. Because I don't know who I am. I'm that person on the game, and then I'm that person outside of the game. I don't know, you know, I felt something was wrong. So I started to meditate, and then I realized that all my motivation came from anger, came from I need to prove someone else, you know. And then when I start to cut all these negative thoughts, I felt like I had nothing left. So I was like less motivated for anything, you know, for basketball. I couldn't find motivation to push myself anymore. So my question is it maybe why most of the leaders they don't want to go in the mindfulness world?
The fear of being soft.
Yeah.
I'll share a story. So I coached for about 8, 9 years. And my last year with my boys, I had them from between 9 and 13, and they stayed with me until they were like 15 to 17 or 14 to 17. And we didn't start winning until our last season. And at that time, I'm like, yeah, like we're good. Now I've always been a fiery coach, loud coach, intense coach. Um, and I got tired of it. I got tired, like you said, right? That anger, that persona. Like Coach D was someone, and Dominique, my nickname was Damo, was someone else, and then Dominique was someone else. I was so tired of being these different people. It was hard to sustain. And so there last year, I'm like, oh, they got it. I ain't got to yell at them no more. And I'll never forget one of my players. He was like, you soft. I was like, who you talking to? I was like, I got to yell at y'all for y'all to listen? Yeah, because that's how I trained them. I was so afraid that I wasn't going to live up that I overcompensated to the point where the only way that they could hear me is if I was angry or loud or intense or demonstrative. And I remember saying to them, I don't want to be that coach anymore. I said that to my boys. And they were like, well, what do you want to be? They was like, but we love her and we love that. And I'm like, yeah, you're used to her, but I'm sorry. I apologize to my team right on the spot. I'm sorry that I trained you to only hear me when I sound like I'm angry. And that's my fault. And so I think to your point and to answer your question, yeah, there may be the fear of softness, right? But I think the bigger fear is identity, right? Like you said, you were Axel, you were angry. That was you were like Kevin Garnett. That's who you was. So who am I if I'm not that?
Mm,
Now, when you talk about being a coach, being a parent, being someone who has a job, taking care of bills, respond all these different hats that we wear, you're asking me to take all those off. How? How am I going to be able to take all those hats off and still see me and be able to put those hats back on with confidence? So I think a lot of our coaches and a lot of our leaders, I don't think they're afraid of mindfulness. I think they want it. I think they need it. I think the hindrance is one, believing whether or not it'll work. How will it work? And I'm still able to be who I am.
mm,
Many people aren't as what's the word? Excited about that level of transformation. It's a very hard process, and it's one that requires great trust in oneself, but it also requires faith in the fact that this is doing something.
mm,
Because again, it's not like a pill where I got a headache, I don't have a headache anymore. It's a process that's qualitative, and that happens over time.
mm.
And so I think that's the issue. I think the fact that this is qualitative and it's going to require coaches to be different, that's the hard part.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm.
So we're talking about a lot about experience, not theory. So maybe we have a little time left. If there's people listening that have been hearing a lot about this stuff for a while, but haven't really maybe committed to anything, what would be I have kind of one, two questions, but what would be a first step? Maybe, like you said, and I have exactly the same energy. Like wanted to be at the end line. I forgot how you said it, but I want to share that because I haven't shared that story that much. But so when I was 29, I went to the Zen Buddhist monastery. and that transformed me deeply. So again, I'm a competitor, played basketball high level, studied physics, like played poker at a high level.
Ooh.
So that energy I brought it to mindfulness. So I was 29 and I learned that historically the Buddha, who was a prince, wealthy, and he discovered suffering and he said, okay, I want to figure this out. How do you go beyond suffering and develop love and happiness? And it took him 6 years to get enlightened. So at 35, under the Bodhi tree, he got enlightened. And to be 100% honest, I was like, it took him 6 years. I'll do it in three. At 32, I'll be enlightened. You know, I'm 43. I'm for sure not enlightened. It's a lifelong journey. But anyway, that's the energy we have. It's one step at a time. Every step is an adventure. So maybe for a first step, what would you share? And my second question, it can be the answer part of the first question, but can we maybe do a little exercise right now? I think you talked about the 533 exercise. So maybe could we take a minute or two and would you be happy to guide us in an exercise?
Sure. I just, so the quote was, "You can't skip to the end."
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's amazing because so many of us, right? I would say each and every one of us have an experience like that, where we're going into something really seeking change, but the default creeps back, right? Like the old person is like, I'm still here, right? And really being able to say, yes, come on, but like,
Mm.
come, but let's do this. So I think that's great. Yeah, because something my grandma used to say, you want to make God laugh, tell God your plans. And that's so similarly what you did. It was like, oh, I know what I'm gonna do. God, God had different plans. But yeah, it's a qualitative process that takes time and commitment and enthusiasm, right? And I think one of the easiest ways to kind of start to facilitate that is when a kid gets a toothbrush and they're 5 years old. The only thing you ask them to do is play in the water and go up and down and brush their teeth. It maybe takes a kid 30 seconds. So I keep it in that same space. I always ask folks that say, hey, coach, I want to start, practicing mental hygiene or mindfulness or meditation. How do I do that? And it's always two words: just breathe. I don't care where you are. You don't need a nice room. You don't need a mat. You don't need a plant. No, what you need is to take, because that's a thing. Taking it. No one's going to give it to you. I can give you a pill, right? I could give you some motivational words, but time is something we take, right? And so take 30 seconds. If you can't start at 30, start at 10 and just breathe. And that's usually the first exercise. And it's the easiest because people are like, oh, I can do that. But that's when the door opens, right? It's almost like the gateway drug, if you will. Breath is the gateway drug. So I like to start people where I want them to end, with breath. I have a really good friend. She travels. She calls herself a nomad. And the other day she hit me up and she said, "Coach, it's been a whirlwind of a few months." And I just sat down for a moment and I recognized I just started 533. It was so subconscious for her. And that's the goal. The goal is, when we say normalize, not asking you to set a new routine or give yourself a new task or put yourself in a position where now you are concerned with a certain result, right? Like, what does mindfulness look like? I gotta look like that, right? 6 years, oh, I can do it in three, right? Because everyone's different. Everyone's process and journey and project is different, right? And so yeah, that first activity, just breathe.
So can we try it together? Would you mind maybe guiding an exercise for a minute for the audience listening? Can
So yeah, so one of the exercise that I always do with any group that I'm with is the 533 breathing meditation. And you can learn more about 533 breathing meditation by just simply hashtag 533 meditation. It is a breathing meditation that I created for mental energy and focus. You earlier talked about the mind being jumbled. Axel, you talked about being split between different identities, right? We all have our own story. We all carry things. And when those things get really heavy, what do we do? And so I created 533 for myself because I wanted to create something that didn't make me feel too relaxed. And I'm an athlete. Like,
Mm.
one of my favorite parts of the game was the huddle, right? And I'm a coach, showing my coachness, right? But I love the huddle because 3 seconds on the clock, we're down by one. We got the ball. I call a timeout to advance the ball. Emotions are high. The crowd is going wild. The other team is looking, right? There's all this life happening. And we get in that huddle and it's just us. We get a plan together of how we're going to respond to the world around us. And we put those hands in. We make a commitment to each other. Defense on three. 1, 2, breath. 3, defense. With everything in us, with that power, we now go out to perform. I said, I want to breathe a meditation like that. I don't want to breathe and go, I don't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. I was like, yo, I got to catch the train. I just missed the train and I still got to get to work on time. I don't have time to actually go, So I created 533 to help me do that. Make me feel like I was in a timeout. Like I could reset. I could get my plan together. I could get my game together and then go back out and play. And so that's how 533 was created.
Awesome.
533 is 5 deep breaths, 3 fast breaths, and 3 loud breaths. And
Okay.
so I'm going to go through each breath just once.
Okay.
It is a 4-minute meditation. And I always encourage people when they first get introduced to 533 to start with just one breath that they like.
Okay.
So many people often come to me and say, hey, Coach, I love that loud breathing. Okay, well, just loud breathe. I got
Mm.
another friend, he's a photographer. He was like, yeah, I be fast breathing all the time. I'm like, what does that do for you? He's like, nah, I feel like I'm up. I feel alert. I'm like, bet. And that he's a photographer. He has to be able to catch things in the moment and be able to see the story unfold in such a way that he catches it, he captures what's unfolding, right? So when we go through 533, I want people to be present with that. Whichever breath resonates with you the most, that's where you start, right? The goal is not to learn 533, commit to 533, and do 533. No. The only goal and the only thing that I want people to leave here from me, from Coach D, is just breathe. That's where you start. And so now we can go into 533. If you're ready, just have your feet planted firmly on the ground. If you want to stand, that's also okay. The only other thing I ask is that you have your hands, palms on your lap, so that way you are able to give and receive to the space.
So palms up.
Next thing, hmm?
Palms up. Palms
Yes,
up.
palms
Okay.
up.
All right.
Mm. The other thing that I ask is that you straighten your back. So we like to sit like this. Sit straight up and take 2 calming breaths, which the body will probably do naturally when you sit up. Next thing I'll ask is that you release your tongue from your jaw or from the roof of your mouth. We're going to go through each breath just once. And how we start this off is once you close your eyes, I want you to feel safe and relaxed. If you choose to keep your eyes open, that is also fine. Find one focal point directly in front of you and stare at it. Next thing I'll ask you to take 2 calming breaths, regular at your own pace, and find your stillness. 533 is a breathing meditation for mental energy and focus. We're going to start with deep breaths. You're going to breathe in through the nose fully, making sure that chest rises. Exhale softly. We're going to deep breath one more time. exhale softly. We're going to move on to fast, which is just like fire breathing. You're going to pull the air in, inflating that chest, and then push out like a cough. Great job. One more time. Pull the air in and push it out. Great job. Now we're going to go on to loud. Pull the air in and release that jaw. Whatever sound that likes to come out, let it free. One more time. Pull it in and release. Take one calming breath. Allow your body to make whatever movements it wants to. Bringing your hands to center, receiving what you've given, and then coming back when you are ready.
Thank you so much.
Indeed, indeed.
Thanks. So we're supposed to do five, five deep breath, and then three like this, and then three
Mm-hmm.
like this, right?
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. 5 deep breaths,
Yeah.
3 fast breaths, and then 3 loud. Mm-hmm. And so fast breathing is a yoga, how you say yogi breathing. But the premise of it, it's also known as fire breathing, where you're pinching the nose. And normally you would breathe out the mouth, out the nose, excuse me. So
Mm,
it's,
mm.
and that's really good for sinus and I'm Jackson, I'm sure you're aware of this breath too, but really awakening the brain and you feel it. And it's a skilled breath. Like if you do it too fast, too hard, too quick, you will pass out. So you actually have to learn how to do
Mm,
it. And so I wanted to incorporate that breath, but I also wanted to integrate it with the huddle. Defense! That loud, that ha, that sense of, yo, let me just get that play off me and I'm ready for the next play.
mm,
Fire breathing awakens the mind. Ha, that release, it now brings it back.
mm,
So now when we go to loud, our body's already prepped to release tension. And we don't have to say, body, release tension, right? We don't have to say, okay, next play. My body already did it.
mm.
So for any athlete, that breathing pattern you can do on the bench,
Mhm.
Yeah.
literally.
So let's say I needed to have a clear like situation in my mind to really understand. So let's say I'm playing a game, right? And I am on the bench. How do I do this? Like could you please like explain me exactly how can I do this as a player? And for anyone that listen who play a sport, whatever, like how can they implement this on the bench, for example?
Um, do exactly what we did. Just breathe. And so it's always about being simple. There's nothing to think about. Literally go on the bench and just breathe.
Just like this.
And so whatever, that's it. Just breathe.
Mm.
Whatever. Again, that's why we never with 5-3-3. I don't know if you guys are familiar with box breathing or
Yeah, yeah,
Wim
yeah, yeah,
Hof.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So there's a certain way you have to do it, right, in order for it to work. And
Hmm.
so I found that when many people box breathe, they're more focused on the result and the
Hmm.
task than they are on just allowing their body to relax and breathe and release and yada yada. And so with 5-3-3, we've never made it a point to create a this is how you have to 5-3-3.
Mm.
No. How you 5-3-3 is you just breathe
Hmm.
and you continue to just breathe. And again, if you are, let's say you're an athlete, you get up every day and you set your timer, and this is what I often recommend to athletes: set your timer. I actually have my mine, it's in my calendar every day, where it says journal time, and then at the end of my day at 5:33, my 5:33 will pop up on my phone. And so even when I look at it, I might not 5:33, I might just, but it keeps that in my mind.
Mm,
And that's really the goal. We want athletes to just have the seed planted,
mm-hmm,
right? Because what happens is, for example, when you inhale, the body's natural reaction is to exhale, right? So I'm not going to tell you to deep and fast and loud and this is how you have to do it. I'm going to say just breathe.
mm,
And so when you, as an athlete, when you go on the bench and you just breathe, something will come to you.
mm.
It may
Maybe
be the
to add to
fast.
that, oh sorry, just breathe with awareness. Maybe that's something to make clear, right? Just breathe also mean being
Well,
aware of the breath.
no, because again, you turn it into a task,
Okay.
right? And so if I say just breathe, like for example, have you ever seen two guys go at it on the court?
Mm-hmm.
And what's usually the phrase people say? Calm down. Or yo, take a breath. Yo,
Mm-hmm.
breathe. Yo,
Mm-hmm.
chill. Just breathe. You see a kid that's angry about a missed shot. What do you tell him? It's okay. Just breathe. It's okay. Next play.
Mm-hmm.
Because in that moment, you want them not to think because they're already. And this is what this
Mm-hmm.
is. And I think this will answer your question. I often tell coaches, you cannot think your way out of a bad thought,
Yeah.
right? And so if I say 533, do it with awareness, then I'm putting a task on your brain now. Your brain has now
Mm.
recognized this word and whatever definition or diction comes with it. Now that's what your brain is trying to do. Your brain is not actually just breathing. Your brain is now trying
Mm-hmm.
to be aware. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the beauty in breath. Breath is a very conscious yet
Mm-hmm.
unconscious and subconscious activity.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
consciousness requires action. So again, when I inhale, that's I don't have to say exhale after you inhale. No one
Mm-hmm.
ever says that. You don't have to. It's implied, right? The body will naturally do it. So I like to stay away from telling people how to breathe, what to do when they breathe, what they should be
Yeah.
thinking while they breathe in. I stay away from all of that. I
Mm,
say just breathe. So the next time you're on the bench or the next time you have a play in the middle of the game and you're running up the court, breathe.
mm-hmm,
Like actually breathe.
mm-hmm,
And then when you have a timeout, go breathe. What I used to tell my boys, this was 7, 8, 9 years ago, 10 years ago. I would take them out and I make them go sit at the end of the bench and I say, yo, go breathe. Coach, I'm good. I know, but go breathe for me.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling them to 533. I'm not telling them to be aware. I'm not telling them
Mm-hmm.
anything other than go breathe because I recognize that their thoughts are like this, that their body is not in coordination with their mind. But I know breath does that. I don't need to say anything. Breath does that naturally. So yeah, I would just tell
Yeah.
an athlete if they want to practice 533 or they want to get some relief to reset when you're on the bench or you have a dead ball or any type of moment, yeah, just breathe.
Mm. Yeah, it's so easy to apply for an athlete. Like it's no, there's no like another task, another,
Yeah.
something like difficult to implement. Just brave. It's, I guess it's
Yeah.
a good advice, to give. Like just do that, nothing else,
Yeah.
and then we'll see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because right when you talk about being present, right? Being present is a process. You
Mhm,
can't be present because you say I'm present. It
mhm.
doesn't work like that,
Yeah,
right? As I said earlier, inhale, exhale. That moment in between is uncertain. It's unsure. But that is where peace is found.
yeah. Because also the game is goes so fast. Like when there's the game is on. It goes so fast. You don't have time to think about something else. But I guess if you just breathe, that's a good that's a good like a good thing to do first and nothing else during the game, at least.
Yeah, because what happens is when you say just breathe, the body does it, right? Like if we're in a game and we're going downhill and I alley oop you the ball and you bam, and then on the very next play we get a steal, bam, we go back up, and now we piling up points, right? If I'm on the other team as their coach, I'm like, yo, we good. Basketball is a game of runs, right? They made a run, now it's time for us to make. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Allowing, Buddhism, impermanence, allowing the thought to happen and letting it, right? And so that's what breath naturally facilitates without provocation, and that's what we want. That's real. That's real relief.
All right. Well, Axel, we need to figure out how to translate just breathe. It always sounds so much better in English. I'm trying to think how we could phrase it in French. Doesn't work out yet, but we'll
Just
figure it out.
respire. Just respire.
Juste respire.
Doesn't sound good.
Yep.
Yes,
Respire.
yes. I did a French transcript of my coloring book,
Okay.
Okay.
and that
Oh,
was the term.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Respire.
So yeah, this is. I'll actually show you now, but this is my coloring book.
Awesome.
You can see it. Yeah, but
No, a little bit
yeah, it
more
says
forward,
just
maybe?
breathe.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, I'll send it. I'll send it to you. But
Cool.
yeah, that just a respire.
Juste
Respire.
respire.
Yep. Well, Coach D, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your powerful insights, your work and commitment. It's really, really inspiring. We hope that people that listen got some clarity, maybe some inspiration on these tools, on this life. Yeah, a way of life. And so if people maybe want to follow you or get more info, we'll put all the info on the description and all the videos, and people could see what you do. But you do amazing work. So I mean, I've been really inspired. So thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
You
thank
guys,
you,
I love what
Sylvie.
you're doing. It's always good to come back to Switzerland, even if through the airwaves. I'm always just really impressed with the culture that's in Switzerland. Like every time I've been to Switzerland, I've met so many people from all over the world. So I really appreciate this opportunity to allow me to share the Athlete Project TAP 533 Get Fit Fly Right with the world, essentially. So thank you, and thank you for the work that you both do. Just breathe. I think of like my mother saying, "Neat, just breathe." Really wanting me to stop. And I didn't get it. I didn't get it. My mother's words, just breathe. She would say it all the time. Neek, just breathe. Inhale, exhale, stop. And I didn't get it. I didn't get it at first. But I believe that it takes not knowing. It takes being wrong. It takes defeat. That moment in between inhale and exhale, it's unsure. And she taught me that. And that's what I teach my players. That is the Athlete Project. To just breathe. To be okay with the moment in between inhale and exhale. Teaching athletes, coaches, leaders to just be in gratitude, in release, in relief, in breath.